Hey YouTube, it's Magician34 and I have my YCS Arlington 2012 deck. I was running heroes, and heroes were a pretty good size amount of the field, but I'll get into that in my matchups. I'll provide a link to that here at the beginning and then at the end of the video too if you want to see what my matchups were and all that. That should be posted soon after this video. But first off, there's one copy of Elemental Hero Stratos, pretty obvious choice there. 3 copies of Elemental Hero Neos Alias, and 1 copy of Elemental Hero Ocean. This guy can be really good for abusing Stratos, especially late game. We have 3 copies of Thunder King Ryo, because he's an amazing card this format. Good beater, too. We're running 1 copy of Evocator Chevalier. He's our 4th Gemini monster. I picked him over Crusader of Endymion because, number 1, he's a warrior, so he's another Rhoda target, which can be good if you get all your heroes out early. And the other reason to pick him is he's materials to make Nova Master, which you can make Shining very easily, so it's nice to have another out that offers you a card draw. We're also running 2 copies of King Tiger Wong Hu. He's a great card for this meta where there's a lot of really small monsters that decks are very dependent on. He hurts windups and whatnot quite a bit, and Secretaries don't really care for him either. They can get around him, but that's why you have other back rows in control. We're running 1 copy of Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness, 1 copy of Honest, and 2 copies of Effect Veiler. There are a lot of decks that really don't care for this, so it is a very good main deck choice. Exactors, once again, really don't like that card. We're also running 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army. Obvious choice. We're running 3 copies of Emergency Call. We're running 3 copies of Pot of Duality, because you special summon, but it's not very often. And Super Poly, for example, special summons on your opponent's turn. So it's a very useful card in this deck. Helps keep your consistency up, which is one of the strengths of heroes. We're also running Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon, 2 main decks, Super Polymerizations, because there is enough dark stuff out there without Escoriato right now at the time I'm making this video, and I played this deck. You don't really want 3, I've discovered through a lot of playtesting, but 2 is awesome. It's a very powerful card because it can't be responded to. And speaking of really powerful cards, Miracle Fusion. This is so powerful late game, it's just ridiculous. 3 copies of Gemini Spark. It's more field control and consistency from the draw. Just a great way to respond to things. Also running 1 copy of Book of Moon. Good for turning off effects and responding to Thunder Kings on the other side. Running 2 copies of Solemn Warning. Just a great control answer card. Gets rid of things without them ever hitting the field. 2 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device, because so many of the big monsters right now are coming out of the extra deck, but it can also obviously get off things that are annoying like Thunder Kings. We're also running 2 copies of Torrential Tribute, because you like to cycle your monsters, but their stuff, if it gets too big, this is a great way to get rid of it, keep them from making that one big turn push where they puke out a bunch of monsters and run you over. Just an obvious choice, really, in a lot of ways. And for the extra deck, we're running 2 copies of Elemental Hero the Shining. He's amazing. He's almost always the one you're going to be fusing for. 2 copies of Elemental Hero Absolute Zero. Ocean helps you make him too. 2 copies of Elemental Hero Nova Master. That guy's quite good. 1 copy of Great Tornado, just because there aren't as many wind attributes anymore. 2 copies of Elemental Hero Gaia, because he's pretty easy to make. There's a good amount of Earth stuff running around. 1 copy of Dragon Knight Draco Equist, because obviously if they get any Synchro Dragon on the field, you can suck it up. So it's usually Scrap Dragon or maybe a Stardust, like especially if you go Storm or Dark Hole and they flip that Starlight Road. This thing is your ticket to a very big monster. We are running 1 copy of Stardust Dragon. Gorz is our way to make that, so Stardust Dragon. We also run Scrap Dragon, because if you summon that Effect Veiler after you Gorz on the previous turn, you can basically sync with the Gorz or the token, and then you got something else guaranteed to pop with the Scrap Dragon to hit something. We're also running Scarred Warrior. He's just he's a bigger Spirit Reaper, basically. For times that you don't want Ally of Justice Catastor, who's your other 5-star synchro. And number 39, Utopia. He's just our Xyz monster of choice. It's obviously for when you're getting kind of backed up against a wall, but it doesn't hurt that he's light attribute either. So that's your extra deck. And the side deck is 1 copy of King Tiger Wong Hu. Windups really, really hate this guy, and getting him early is important. So he's a very good choice against them. That's one of the main reasons you side him. We also side 2 copies of Doom Caliber Knight. This guy's good against all kinds of things. But basically, I mean, you can side him into the chaos stuff that's running around. He's good against Insectors. He's good against Dino Rabbit, and so on and so forth. He's just really good. 2 copies of DD Crow, because Dark Worlds don't like him. Lightsworn doesn't like him, all the Lightsworn Dragony stuff. Anything that reaches into the grave a lot obviously doesn't like Crow. And we do have 2 copies of Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. He's only for certain matchups. You got to be kind of careful when you're running him, when you're siding him. But obviously, Lightsworn Chaos doesn't like him. But running him in for certain matchups allows you to also side your 1 copy of BLS. You have plenty of light main deck, so if you're siding in 3 to 4 darks, you can also side in Blacklist your Soldier. That's a really nice surprise. We're also siding our 3rd copy of MST for anything that sets a lot. It's also a good side against Chainburn and Gravekeepers, stuff like that. And one of my unusual choices is Nordic Relic Levitine, and you might not even know what it does, but it's kind of like a Sakuretsu armor. Basically, if they attack and destroy one of your monsters in battle, you can flip this to destroy the monster that destroyed yours, and it can't be responded to. It's primarily sided in for Dino Rabbit, and the reason for that is they're going to summon Logia against you almost every time, and Logia can be really tough to get over, especially if he's backed up by a Solemn Warning or something. So with this set, you can just set your monster or summon it or whichever, let them attack thinking they're really safe, and then you flip this to kill the Logia, and it doesn't get to use its negation, and the back row doesn't protect them at all. So it's a really good side in for that particular event. Although it does also work on Gladiator Beasts, which I did run into twice, amazingly, this event. I didn't think they'd be big, but they were there, and it's a good answer for them. We also have our 3rd Super Poly for decks that, like windups that really don't like having their stuff super polyed away. And it's also excellent for the mirror match, which is a concern. We're also citing Karma Cut. Once again, it's good for the mirror match against heroes. Dark Worlds don't like it when they get all those Grappas in the grave, summon one, and then you chain Karma Cut and take them all out. It can be difficult for them to get them all back, and it's time consuming for them, and it gives you that edge that you need. And last, we are citing 1 copy of the Fabled Catsith. It's another one you may not know what it does. It's a 1-star light tuner with 800 attack that whenever it's discarded from your hand as a cost or as an effect or whatever, it destroys a card on the field. So you can side it in against Gravekeepers or Dark Worlds. And you can also side it in for your mirror match where you're siding in your Karma Cuts and your Super Poly. Because then you'll have 5 cards in your main deck that say discard a card. So you can obviously side this. And you're probably not going to want your Veiler for those matchups anyway, so this gives you access to a tuner additionally. So he's really superior to Rainbow in that sense, because Rainbow's kind of dead in your hand if he doesn't get discarded to a card effect, whereas Catsith does a lot of stuff. He's especially good against the Dark Worlds because he pops their field spell. Because when they Royal Tribute you, they're gonna play their field spell first, set all their back rows, so you'll get to pop that Necro Valley right off, and they won't have like a Commandant in their hand, because of the tribute. So anyway, that's Heroes, and there should be a link posted very soon for all my matchups, and I'll tell you all about who and what I played, and you'll get kind of a feel for what the meta was at this event. And until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool videos.